Dr. Be Good show, where we share the practice, the pedagogy, the politics currently happening in public education. And as always, I ask that you write your name in the comments when you come in and let me know your thoughts, your observations, your comments, and questions about the topic being discussed. I am a longtime teacher, so I enjoy having an actively participating class during the show. Even if you listen later, you can still pop your questions in because I'll get an alert and I'll go in there and I'll respond. So let's get started. Today, we're bringing back somebody or somebodies. We're bringing back a family that was with us who started school before almost anybody else in the nation. This is the Purkey family, and they started school in what was it, August? What was the date, Jessica?
August 4th, I believe.
August 4th. And so we talked to you and Rylie. I think Olivia was a little shy back then, but not right now. Remember, no movement, Miss Olivia. We heard about what it was like that first week of school. And if I remember correctly, that first Friday, after a full week of school, you were sent home for 14 days because of COVID. Is that correct, Rylie?
Yes.
So let's get started. So Jessica, how has this school year, now we're 3 months in, right, been different for you as a parent? What's different?
Really, I think the main thing that's different is not getting school papers sent home. So anything I need to know about upcoming events, report cards, parent-teacher conferences, anything like that is done through email or an app called Class Dojo that the school uses to keep in contact with the parents. And before this year, I was really bad at checking that constantly. So I've gotten a lot better at checking it on a daily basis and making sure that they have clean masks to wear on a daily basis also. But other than that, I think the difference really is more for the kids than it is for myself.
So have there been any positives coming out of this COVID period for you as a family?
I think as a family, I think the most positive thing that actually has come out of it is the fact that we're spending more time together. We're finding more activities to do outside of the house, not necessarily that we have to pay money for. Like a few weeks ago, we went and found a place to go hiking next to some waterfalls, and that was a full day of picnics and waterfalls and hiking and playground and things just kind of like that, and getting out of the house more. And we've also been better at eating dinner at the table together and talking about how our day went, because we really got really bad about that for a while.
Well, good. Glad to hear it. What are you doing differently as far as safety practices now? What is a sort of a normal part of your structure that wasn't a part of your safety structure before COVID?
Sanitizing our hands, washing our clothes as soon as we get home from school, which really isn't as much as we were doing at first when the school year first started. But I know wearing masks has definitely become a more normal part of our daily. The girls will get in the car and forget they even have their mask on, and I'll have to remind them, hey, you're in the car, you can take your mask off now. So that's kind of been a little different, but it's part of our normal daily life now. So
okay. So Olivia, can I ask you a couple of questions? How are you enjoying school this year? Because you're a kindergartner this year, right? You were pre-K last year, and this year you're kindergarten. What is school like for you?
Do you like it?
Yes.
You like it? So what do you like about school?
With my friends.
Your friends, okay. And how about, did you like when you were having to learn at home on the computer, or do you like going to class better at school?
On Peter at home.
You'd rather be home, but your friends aren't home, right? So at least you get to see your friends, right?
Yes.
What about masks, Olivia?
Mask is
Do you wear a mask at school?
our face.
Do you wear a mask at school? Yes.
And is it hard, Olivia, for you to wear the mask all day?
Yes.
And so are your friends at school good about wearing masks?
Yes.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, has the school had to go on shutdown since that first week when Rylie went?
No, it really hasn't gone on shutdown at all. They really just make whoever was exposed stay home for I think it's 10 days actually. But since Rylie had to go quarantine, we've only had 2 other positive COVID cases.
Oh, okay.
One actually was last week, but Rylie has not been a part of having to do the quarantine part of it.
So you got the call or the email, huh?
Yeah.
So, Miss Rylie, let me ask you some questions. So what is school? You're in 5th grade, so you've done school now for like 6 years. This is your 6th year of school, if you can believe that. How is this year different from other years?
It's different because we have to wear masks in school. And in the cafeteria.
You're a little bit louder, closer to the computer, Rylie.
We can't eat in the classroom anymore. We have to wear masks.
You can't eat in
The cafeteria.
Okay, and what about, are you allowed to use the playground?
You're about to leave.
We can go outside, but we can't use we can't get on the swing.
Yeah, we at our district, we're thinking about letting kids get back on the playground, but it's so difficult to clean between groups. It takes so much time that, they're tough decisions. We just hope that when we get you outside, we keep you running. Are you being more physical? Are they making sure that you're getting exercise?
Yes.
Okay. Are you still doing virtual school in school, or do you have sort of regular school going on now?
Regular school.
Okay. Do you still have some kids who are staying at home from your class?
No.
Everybody's back. How many kids do you have in your class?
17.
Okay. Everybody does it a little bit different. So, how is your mask wearing going? Do you feel comfortable now wearing a mask every day?
Mm-hmm.
And how about your friends?
Use your words, please.
Yes.
Are they all being pretty good? I mean, because that was the big fear before school started. All the adults were saying, "Oh no, kids won't wear the masks and they're not going to be safe." Are you saying that the masks are not a problem?
I mean, there's a couple kids who, when they're eating, they take off their mask and forget to put it back on.
Okay. So the teachers sort of do this to remind kids to wear it above their nose?
No, they kind of go like that.
Oh, they do a different kind like this. Okay. I guess different symbols for different schools, right? And do you feel like school is easier, harder? What do you feel like this year compared to other years?
I think it's a little harder because, you can't hug your friends, you can't do handshakes, you can't go at once like you normally do.
Come closer. I didn't hear that last part.
You can't really do things that you would normally do.
Which is, like you said, hug, handshake, what else? You didn't sit next to each other real close, right?
Yeah, they have the desks spread out. Usually all the desks would be put in groups.
Mhm. If you could change one thing about this year, Rylie, what would it be? You can't change the COVID thing, but if you could change anything else, what would you change?
Not wearing masks.
Oh, okay. Even though you wear it and you're not making a big deal about it, that's the one thing that you wish was different, huh?
Yes.
And so, thank you for being on this. Let me ask something now. This is the Ask Dr. Be Good show. Do you guys have any questions for me as a school superintendent about what's going on in other parts of the country?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have to remind a few students, like if they had their mask down in the hallway, do you have to remind them to put their mask?
So when I walk to schools, what I do is I do like this. Okay, they know what that means. We've trained teachers to do that, because what we don't want, and I hope it's not happening at your school, what we don't want are teachers saying, "Hey, put your mask up. You know you shouldn't wear your mask down. Put your mask on." We don't want that. We don't want masks to become a discipline issue, because it's so new. Well, it shouldn't be a discipline issue ever, but especially in the beginning, we were only in the first 3 months of school. We're doing something we've never had to do before. And so doing one of these that reminds kids to put their mask over their nose, that doesn't involve any whiny voice, right? It's just, just a gentle reminder. So my work, Rylie, is to help my adults that work at school to stay kind to kids all the time. Even if they're irritated because they're having to say to the same girl or the same boy, it's not everybody who's not wearing their mask, right? It's usually one or two kids, but that's just the way it is. That's life, right? And so making sure our adults just use a little signal so that kids are reminded to put their mask on. That's harder, unfortunately, than it should be. Olivia, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Do you have a question? If you just want to talk.
Well, guys, thank you very much for being on and sort of catching us up, because what message I'm getting from you all is that things are pretty normal. Even though we're in this crazy COVID time, it sounds like you have school going on. You guys are practicing safety, COVID safety. The school is practicing COVID safety. And things are normal, except you don't get to use the playground. You don't get to sit next to your friends and hug them. So, but in tough times, some sacrifices have to be made. And keeping you safe during this time is our biggest priority. So it sounds like your mom's doing a good job, you guys are doing a good job, and your school is doing a good job. Can't ask for more than that. Well, everyone, well, thank you so much for the time on, and maybe we'll check on you at the end of the year and see how you survived the whole school year.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, we have another guest who will be popping on shortly. But in the meantime, let's talk about the fact that we have school closures going on, and an interesting thing happening. My own district closed down because of a combination of staff and student COVIDness. And so we have an interesting way of handling the Thanksgiving period. And so, and we didn't pick this up ourselves, but we are going to stay not only virtual this week before Thanksgiving. Of course, we won't have school next week, but we're going to stay virtual the week after Thanksgiving as well. And what the thought is that if people don't obey the social gatherings, and there's much thought that people aren't going to want to stay away from their relatives and their family during Thanksgiving, then what's going to happen is COVID is going to spread, and the symptoms will show up, of course, starting the week after Thanksgiving. So we're trying to outthink the virus, and I can always report back to see how well that's going. But we're hoping that if any of our legacy family and staff did come in contact with COVID during the Thanksgiving break, that they will then show their symptoms the following week and not bring it to school. So we'll see. Well, welcome, Karla Smith. You are our master teacher from the field. How are you doing?
I'm doing actually surprisingly well under the circumstances.
And so you talk a little bit about what you do, who you are, what you do, and what your COVID school environment looks like these days, 3 months in.
So I teach 8th grade science in Dallas ISD. I'm at an IB campus, and I am the instructional lead teacher over the science department. So I have to pop into other classrooms all the time and kind of keep my hand on the pulse of what's going on, all things science. I'm also the TEI, which is our teacher rating system, campus expert. So I've got to hear a lot of things about teachers in regards to how we're being evaluated in this COVID time. That's a lot of the static that teachers have, is it's not fair to be evaluated when kids aren't even here in the room with us. So I'm also in a focus group for the district on what should we do about trying to mitigate the learning loss during COVID. And so there's a couple of plans that they're negotiating, like extended year, teaching with intersession, like little boot camps during intersession. Should we do that? Should we rearrange our school day and actually have part of the school day designed for catch up for certain targeted kids, or should we extend the whole school year for every kid? So those are all things that my district is sort of weighing in and seeing what teachers' thoughts are based on what we're seeing in the classroom and what the needs are and the gaps.
So
I didn't hear you.
So what are some of these strategies and thoughts that teachers have and how to mitigate these gaps? Because I'm guessing they pulled their master teacher group based on the teacher ratings, and so you've got some really fine brains in the room. What's the discussion? How are we going to solve this problem?
So right now it's literally deciding based on what campuses are weighing in, like across the district. We've had a few target groups, which I was on one of the first ones, which was cross section of 12 individuals. And then it's been expanding out. What do teachers say? Do they want to teach during the breaks is what it comes down to. Do you want to teach during the breaks? Of course, you would get additional pay for that. Do you wait till the end, which is not what I want to do. Wait till the end after they failed STAR and then go, well, I guess we didn't stop the learning loss. I guess we'll just go to summer school now, when we're already aware that they're not where they're supposed to be now. So to me, it's like waiting until after they code and flatline and then try and use the defibrillator. It's like, why would you do that? You need to deal with it now as it's coming up in the class. So right now there's not a district disposition on how do you catch kids up. It's teachers doing the best they can in the way that they see fit, but the district is planning on taking a disposition after these couple of rounds of focus groups with the parents. Are they willing to send their kids during breaks? Are they willing to let them stay longer after the day? Are they willing to have the year go longer? So they're trying to find out what will be the most bang for their buck, and where do we have buy-in? Because not all parents want their kids to go to school during breaks. Some of them don't want to do summer school because they leave the country, all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of cultural factors there because, people go see family elsewhere and they don't have time to send their kids to school, and they won't. So there's a whole lot happening, and we've only got a third of our students here. So of the whole campus, we've got a third present, face to face, and we're teaching virtually and face to face simultaneously. So it's all synchronous instruction, which, as everybody knows, is way harder than just worrying about kids in your room and then doing something else for the kids online. The kids at home and the kids in the room are doing the exact same thing at the same time.
Can you talk from a personal experience how that's working for you and how you're making it work? Because I know you're making it work, even though it is the hardest way of doing it.
It's super hard. It's hard to engage the kids when they're sitting at home and laying in their bed and you're telling them, sorry, you can't take my class while you're laying against your headboard. I'm not in your house, but you're in my class because you're on my Zoom. So that's how that works. So I'm going to put you in the waiting room and I'll be back in a second when I see that you've gotten to the table or wherever you're going to be that's not in a pile of pillows. And so they're pretty compliant when I say, well, I think you'd be uncomfortable if you saw me laying in my pajamas in a pile of pillows and trying to teach you. And so nobody wants to see that anyway. And so let's agree that we both need to come ready to present ourselves professionally because, and they're like, yeah, we don't want to see that. So just reasoning with them of why we need to do that, because you're mentally in a different space when you're laying in your bed versus if you're sitting at a desk or at a table. Not being mean, not lecturing, just letting them know we do that because the science says our brain is approaching the world in a different perspective when we're sitting in a workspace and having a designated spot that you work at every day, and how much easier it's going to be for them to learn. So you have to talk about those things. With 8th graders, you would think, oh, they should know that by now. No, they don't. We've never had to do this before. So a lot of it is letting them do work in a different way. We tried a lot of fancy. I mean, we've subscribed to so many things, the Nearpods, the Paradex, if it has a subscription, we paid for it. So we've got all these bells and whistles. But at the end of the day, you know what kids like to do? They like to grab a pencil and write stuff down, like when we're doing a lot of these physics problems, because your brain processes math differently than if you're typing the numbers versus you're drawing. So I went back to the old school, get your notebook out, work the acceleration problems and hold it up to the camera. Now more of the kids are engaged. And also I go, ooh, I want to give you credit. I'm going to take a picture. That way, if your mom asks, I've got you on the screen. And I can do that because they're blocking like this. They're blocking their face and it's just showing, their work. And so then I can go and say, okay, look, your mom's going to ask me and I'm going to tell her. And then, of course, the kid that is sitting there with nothing on the page, then that's a follow-up phone call or whatever. But they didn't participate as much just doing a Google form or just doing a slide deck where they felt like I'm not actually seeing their work in that moment. So they didn't work as hard. But when I say, oh, show me, they like that better because I say, oh, look at you. You even put the units. So they're still kids. They still want to hear their teacher give them that attaboy, attagirl. While you're working hard, you're going to be good at physics because I see your effort. When they're typing in cyberspace and I check it at 10 at night, I didn't see their effort in that moment, so I couldn't tell them anything. So why would they work that hard? They're not getting any feedback right then and there. Of course, you've got Padlets and different things where they can type short answers. But when you're talking about long, involved chemistry or physics problems, that's a lot of work to not get credit for right then and there. So we're learning on the fly, but realize some of the advancements aren't as advanced as we would think they are. They really, it's kind of a little bit more old school. They want to show me, is this right? And then hold it up to the screen. They can share their screen and use the whiteboard. And sometimes, I'm not saying we don't do that, but especially I'm finding with the math, there's something about paper and pencil and doing math that doesn't stick as well just typing in the numbers and graphing it. Their brain it's not sticking. You know, they'll take a test and get a terrible grade. So I'm learning to use less of some of the technology when I'm needing to go with a math concept than with it other things. So
that's good news. And I think parents need to know that. Parents who are helping us and who maybe can use that advice even in the home. Paper and pencil oftentimes is going to be more engaging for kids than more device work. So thanks for that. So the evaluation, just touch quickly on how will a big school district like Dallas evaluate its 20, how many, 15,000, 17,000 teachers?
Yeah, it's in the 20s now, I think. Well, that's the fun message I get to deliver, which is evaluations have resumed this year. And in our case, that accountability goes to your compensation. They're linked. And so if your evaluator does not deem your performance according to a rubric that was, by the way, devised prior to COVID, but is still in place. So in a nutshell, the rubric that we used to use, we are still using. So how does that translate? What's the crosswalk to that? So we do have a supplemental ancillary rubric that is for online instruction. And really what that would be is kind of like the speaker notes in your presentation that reminds an evaluator, how would I gauge for participation, or how do I see judge engagement for students? Was it 90%? Was it 80%? Because the rubric is very specific. So then they have to make sure they're trained on the technology of, okay, I need to check the chat, or do I need to look in the Nearpod and see what's happening? Because if they're just listening for who unmutes, it might look like nobody's engaged. So things like that, that's just one example of reminders of what does it look like. It's a different animal. But what's not different is this: if students are not mastering the objective and they do not meet the success criteria of your learning goals, right? Because we're using a formative assessment model. If they do not do that, you have not taught, right? So we don't get to say, I taught that, I don't know why they didn't get it. No, you didn't teach it if they haven't met the success criteria. So that's where teachers have to say, okay, I thought this would work, it didn't. Try something else. But when you keep on doing another PowerPoint, another drag and drop, another whatever it is that you're committed to creating daily, and when the numbers show it's not working, that's where your evaluation is going to reflect, you know what, this was not a dynamic teacher. They decided that what they were comfortable with was enough, or what they liked best was enough. It didn't necessarily meet the needs of your students, but you stuck with it. Then you're going to take the hit on your evaluation. It isn't to say that you have to love doing online instruction as much as in person. I don't know anyone who does, but the kids cannot pick up the tab for our lack of proficiency is what it boils down to. And we will be evaluated on that. If you have students who are not learning and you are not adapting, you're not getting better faster, as the Bambrick saying, his book, Get Better Faster. Yeah. If you're not getting better fast enough, then somebody has to be held accountable for that. Are you just going to pin it on the kids? And I say no. And I'm glad that my district also says no, because why are we here if we're okay with kids backsliding further and further? Not on my watch, but
So, I think, right, the T-Test has come out with an online virtual remote learning rubric.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you all are using that as as a foundation for teacher evaluation. I know you have your own, Dallas has its own evaluation system,
Right.
but steel, right? What's a wheel that's already been invented. So maybe that'll help. So let's move into the academic parts and saying, are we being successful? And there's an article, I sent you the article about a steeper COVID slide expected in math and in reading. And the research predicts learning gains in reading to be 63 to 68% of what they normally would be. But math is expected to be much lower at only 37 to 50% on average. So, these numbers assume a 50% absenteeism rate during the school closures compared to normal circumstances. What do you see?
Well, it's interesting when you sent me that. I thought, okay, because I watch all of our board meetings, and what the data is showing using MAP testing is that we have 50% of our students behind where they were last December. So that's when we gave our ACPs, our semester test. So half of our students are behind where they were a year ago in math. 30% of our students are behind where they were a year ago in reading. So I would say that corresponds to what you're saying is, yeah, reading and math are not showing the same rate of decline. And for math, it's worse, which me being in science, relying heavily on both reading and math, but where kids fall down in science is usually the lack of math skills. Well, that was the case prior to COVID. So now it's even worse, which is kind of why I told you a few minutes ago why I'm really focusing on the paper and pencil with the math, because at the same time I'm doing the math that's embedded in science, I'm really going in and honing in. It's like rebuilding the stairs. We're halfway up the staircase, but we got a couple stairs out. So I'm trying to rebuild the stairs while we're on the staircase in math. And what my administrators have said is, wow, that's great. We're coming in and you're doing all of this math foundation work. Well, the kids need it, not just in my class, but moving forward to high school next year. That is the biggest disservice we could give, is send kids to high school not being able to do middle school math. That's absolutely a death sentence. I mean, they're what could they possibly pass? They're not going to pass algebra. They're not going to pass biology. I mean, it's going to forever truncate their success. I was reading an article talking about that they're projecting that students, the COVID generation, as they're calling it, is going to earn less, is projected to earn less money as adults because they're never going to catch up from that backslide. And I know you're like me. I'm not okay with that. I mean, a kid, it's through no fault of their own, they're going to earn less as an adult. I can't fix that for every kid, but I can tell you what, I'm doing the best I can for my 175 to say, well, no. And the compliments, wow, miss, you're good at math and science, and wow, I'm glad you think so. Well, I'm telling you all my secrets, so it's just kind of a nice little camaraderie when they feel like telling their teacher they're good at something, because 8th graders, as you know, don't really compliment teachers very often. And that's if they log on. And the first 6 weeks, I had maybe 10 at the most. My classes are over 20 every single day, so they're showing up. That's the biggest compliment. They came to class, so it must be worth their time when they're actually showing up to your class.
What are you doing when they don't show up? I mean, I know nationwide we have a huge shortage of kids. So what are you doing about your kids that are on your roll and who are either haven't shown up at all or are very sporadic in their attendance?
So I'm a little old school in that regard. So here's the paper roster, and I write notes when kids show in late. Oh, they came in at 8:46. The class started at 8:20. That's I write that down because that's going to be a phone call, and I'm going to say, yeah, I'm so concerned because during that 26 minutes we did all these great things, and unfortunately, so and so missed that. Oh, really? I wasn't aware, and so I actually write the times down because if you just count them tardy or absent, then you get an email, no, they were there. I saw them on the computer. But when I have, no, they logged in at 8:46, that's an exact time. And then I even take pictures of the screen when they're in the waiting room. I know it's a shocker, but eighth graders don't always tell the truth. And so when they say, no, they were on the computer. Okay, well, they were not in class. You saw the computer and they were typing, they were watching YouTube videos or playing a game. But yes, and so I actually call, I text. I've got parents who will say, well, text me as soon as they don't show up. Not a problem. They're texting and I've got my phone, and are they on there? No, let me call home and get them out of bed. Perfect. So I don't wait, till the end of the day to then call. If I can, I get the parents and text them and call them right then and there, and they go and wake a kid and then they come on with bedhead. That's fine. So they've decided it's no fun to have even grandma come over and yank them out of bed with no breakfast and stick them in front of a camera with sleep in their eyes. So it's a little bit of, I guess, the vanity that they have, that they'd rather have time to get fixed how they want to look for the camera rather than I'm going to call or text. So yeah, that's what I do. I just stop them.
So how is attendance going for you? Have your teachers, because I know that you mentor and you're really good about watching over your flock of teachers. Attendance had been a real issue, and even in my district, ironically enough, it's the elementary teachers. Secondary didn't seem to have a problem, but that not every kid can be there in a synchronous way. And so we have asynchronous kids who do get online after teachers have logged off for the day. And so the routine for many districts is that teachers are supposed to look very first thing in the morning to check to see if the kids have the 20% that didn't log on during the day, if they logged on at night and had interacted with the learning platform and or turned something in. Is that the routine you guys are in?
We are supposed to do that. I'm going to be very frank. Physics and chemistry is not something you self-teach. So if you just log in and you're supposed to do the problems, with what tools? You didn't learn it, right? When kids do that, I have common assessment data where kids got 2 right because they didn't come to class. They just logged on and tried to take the test cold. Well, that's data against me now, right? So guess what? That's no. So I don't actually allow that. If you need to come later, then I'm going to schedule a tutorial and I'll teach it to you myself. But you don't get to just log in and click stuff and then get credit, because that's my numbers. That's my data. I'm accountable for that data. So I'm one of those. I taught a 2-hour chemistry class on a Saturday. I let the kids pick the time. I had 20 kids show up for that from 12 to 2. And that's what I did instead. It's like, okay, well, we'll do that, but you don't get to just do the work. I'll teach it to you on your schedule. Now, are a lot of teachers willing to do that? Maybe not. But you know what? I have to deliver what the kids need, and it doesn't work from 8 to 4. Like you said, for some kids, I have kids who are babysitting. I have kids who, whatever. Okay, what do you need? And most of the time, they have rearranged their schedule to come to my class because they see that I'm really bending over backwards for them. So they'll come. But the other ones, I just schedule a tutorial. It might be from 5 to 6. It might be from 6 to 7. But it's not just, oh, I saw you click on an assignment and so that's what you get for your grade. You don't get to do that. Not on this stuff. Physics and chemistry isn't one of those things. I mean, it doesn't work. You know, they just end up with failing grades, and I refuse to do that because I could have saved them. I'm not going to fail a kid when I didn't have a shot at fixing the problem.
And again, that's that master teacher level that you know, that's what it takes. And so I always hold you up as a role model to other teachers and to parents who need to know what a model teacher looks like. And that's you, what a master teacher looks like. And if you're not getting that type of work from your teacher, and your child, you see your child doing all that he or she can, that may be a conversation with the school principal, because we know that parents often have to become advocates for their kids. So, you know, if your teachers don't measure up to somebody who sounds like Karla, well, that might be a conversation you need to have at your child's.
Even videos. I was going to say I have a YouTube channel, and I'll just record very compact videos, you know, 5, 10, up to 15 minutes on one skill. And then I'm sharing my screen and I'm going exactly, you know, step by step through a quiz or an assignment. And then after the fact, the kids can watch it. And then I'm opening the assignment back up on the Google form and they can do it again. I've had people say, well, that's cheating. They know the answers. Okay, they had to watch the whole video and couldn't skip. If you uploaded an Edpuzzle where it requires them to not skip, you can upload your own videos and then have them interact with the video, intermittently answer a question based on, okay, I just changed a few of the numbers, but it's the exact same one that you took before. I just switched a few. You still have to do the calculations in the same way, and you replace the grade. I don't understand who wouldn't do that, but I do hear teachers say, well, too bad, you turned it in. I mean, the deadline's passed, the assignment's locked, there's no makeups. And I think, wow, let's hope that that never happens to you. I hope you're perfect, because the second you miss a deadline and there's no forgiveness and grace and mercy, I don't see that as effective. That's definitely not gonna motivate kids.
That's one of those teacher traditional behaviors or practices that we need to get past. Just like disciplining kids, all of that is old time school. And we need to get better at training our teachers to use more empathetic practices, just like a simple one that I used earlier in the show today when we had the Purkey family on, the 5th grader, a kindergartner, about wearing masks. And so do your teachers get on to you when you're not wearing your mask, or do they do the simple little signal, right? Yes, you may have to do this 13 times with 2 of your, you know, in the 5th grader's case, she has 17 in her class. And so out of the 17, you may have 2 or 3 that you're going to have to do this more than the others, but you just do it. That yelling at kids, that, you know, there's a great phrase, you can't beat the trauma out of a kid. Well, you can't punish the trauma out of a kid. And these kids come to us, and especially now COVID, traumatized in different ways, right? And so what you're talking about is actually sort of beating kids at their own game, right? And so you're outwitting them instead of punishing them. And so good for you. The other article that I sent you was an interesting one, I thought. It wasn't well written, but I hope you had an opportunity to read it several times, because it took that to understand it. But there is now a Houston-based nonprofit called Children at Risk. And their work is to, they've created a racial equity index to analyze how well schools are serving students of color. And they did pick on Dallas ISD, which is why I sent it to you. And first of all, I thought the title was misleading. I don't know if you did too, because the title was, which schools are pandemic proof? New rankings give insight. So what was your first thought? Oh, there's some schools that have figured out how to be safe from COVID, right? Well, no. It's what they've done is they have looked at Dallas ISD's strongest schools, magnet schools, the all-girls school, the all-boys school, Obama Middle School, I believe it is, and those kids have to apply to those schools, right? They and the magnets, of course, you have to have certain expectations in your academic portfolio to have a chance at getting in. And so what they're implying is that those kids go to schools that are pandemic proof as far as the COVID gap, which I would hope so, right? You, Karla, are in that Title I, predominantly minority, predominantly low socioeconomic fight every day. I don't know that the same can be said for some of these other highly academic, highly ranked school. But the interesting part that they pointed out was that you can have the #1 high school in the country, which is the magnet school in Dallas. It's #1 in academics, but it's ranked 80 for equity. And so what did you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because one of my very good friends is over. Well, you're talking Townview Magnet, but he's at the SEM. Yeah, he's the principal of that. So that's an interesting discussion for us to have because he used to be over the science department at another school in ACE, and so then I can kind of give him like prod at him, like, well, I know you were ranked at the top, but we've got some work to do. So that's funny that you sent that because we have those kind of discussions like, okay, well, before we pat ourselves on the back, break our arms patting ourselves on the back, what are we going to do about the equity piece? And that's a big soapbox that I get onto. This is one example, we don't do labs in school because they're not doing labs at home. Like if I were to give the kids in school equipment, but the kids at home are on the Zoom watching the kids at school doing something else, they get to use the test tubes and they get to do that, then there's going to be a certain, that's not fair. And look, there's to me an equity issue because you're not offering the same opportunity. So the kid, of course, in school who was using all of the equipment, no doubt is going to do better than the kid at home. So what could you possibly create that is available to both simultaneously? That's infinitely harder and still have it be hands-on. So things like that, it doesn't matter how smart the kids are. If you're not creating equity, you're allowing more privilege to some and not to others. And some of those kids who go there are very well-to-do and others have nothing. And what are you doing about that to make sure they're receiving the same education? That's an issue still.
That's the interesting part because, for example, the school, the talented and gifted school is ranked #21 in North Texas, but it dropped in its equity score because even though Dallas ISD is 96% minority, I think it's only 4% Anglo. Here at this school, you have 30% Anglo. Whoop, wait a minute, how'd that happen, right? And it's predominantly Hispanic as a district, but it's only 39% Hispanic here, 30% white, 17% Asian, and 10% Black. Oh, wait a minute, what happened there? And so they, Dallas ISD, due to this ranking now, knows that they have an equity issue at their strongest academic schools. They're not really looking out for all equally. And so it says in here that they're creating a program to target and support African American students. So,
and it has to start before they get there, because what's happening is here come the applications, who ranked higher, who had the higher scores on all of these indicators for admission. The kids who are scoring better are, not surprisingly, the same ones that it's coming out when you distill out who's coming at the bottom, who's coming at the top. We don't have to be surprised at why are more Anglos getting in, because they're doing better in middle school. They're doing better in elementary. They're doing better at all levels. So that's a systemic problem. It's not just at Townview. That's just where you would think, oh, well, we fixed it by now. No, we didn't fix it, because the reason that many more Anglos got in is because they were doing better to qualify before they got there. They were doing better in middle school and in elementary. They've always been doing better in our system. We've got it wrong, because why are they doing so much better? That's our fault. That's our fault. That's our mirror that we get to look at as teachers. It absolutely is. And anyone who thinks, well, because at their house, no, that's exactly the problem. That is the problem. What are we doing wrong? We are teaching kids to fulfill that exact trajectory that we've already planned for them. The kids are just producing what we expected them to produce. They're producing at the levels or not that we expected. We're programming them. And they're just giving us what they thought we wanted. Well, I knew you didn't think I could do it, miss. So I didn't. That's what happened.
that's a whole nother show right there.
Yes.
But I thank you for being on. We don't have much time left in the show, so thank you for being on, for bringing your perspective from the field. If we could get all teachers to move towards your way of practice and thinking, I think we would have a much better chance with our kids and with COVID gap. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank
We'll be back on soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. So we only have a few minutes left. Let us, before I forget, this is the Thanksgiving period. And there are a couple things I wanted to bring to your attention. One is that it is November is Native American month, and it's now that we have gotten better about understanding the story of all the people of the time. We now know and are moving away from glorifying Christopher Columbus, the conquistadores, and all of them, and we are putting the focus more on Native Americans and so forth. And there is a website that one can visit where you plug in your zip code, and it tells you the land of the people. It tells you what tribes had that land or have that land. Depends on where you live. But I thought that was an interesting thing, and we'll put that in the chat for you. And then we have, and we should be practicing gratitude, right? Gratitude is something that we should be practicing. We should be role modeling it for our kids in the classroom, our kids at home. And to make it easier for yourself, you can download an app called GTHX. And it's really give thanks, right? It's GTHX. I'll put it in the chat also. And it's the ability to have somebody put resources for you so that you don't have to find them yourself, to be thankful every day. So it's got different prompts. You can journal. What's something fun that you noticed or experienced today? You can do it together with your kids. Great bonding opportunity. You can thank a friend. And so being able to work at gratitude is a skill that some of us may need to get better at, and this is a good time to start, especially remembering that it's time to make sure that we're building that character trait in our kids, right? We don't do that enough, oftentimes because of our busy times. COVID has given us many negative obstacles, and I'm taking this term from somebody else, but there have been many COVID blessings. And so my challenge to you is that you try to share with your family, maybe at the dinner table most nights, because like you heard the Purkey family say, they are now sitting down together to eat more than they ever had before. But is that the time maybe to come up with the COVID blessing for the day or the week? What are we grateful for? What were the good things that happened in our day? Can we maybe say something good about a sibling that happened today or this week? Being very active in making sure that we're communicative, that we are positive, that we're role modeling positiveness to our families, and if we're teachers, to our kids, our students. I know many districts like ours use restorative practice as a behavior management tool, and it starts with a community circle every morning. So teachers, if you haven't done that as part of your classroom routine, I highly, highly suggest you do that. Excuse me. It is a very effective way of of building a relationship with kids, of getting the pulse of each child, so that if something comes up, you've got that foundation built, and then we can ask just questions around the incident versus getting into I need to punish you and I need to be negative around this learning opportunity. Because a lot of behaviors are learning opportunities. They're messages that are being sent to us by the child that adults often aren't receptive to hearing. So that's another show. Restorative practice is it's a wonderful social justice tool to use with children, and it's something parents could use as well at home. And again, another show, but making sure that we use tools that lead to kindness, lead to reflection, lead to mindfulness are things that both parents and educators need to make sure they have as part of their repertoire in handling kids. So again, just a couple minutes left before the end of our show. We thank you for being on. I'm so grateful for all of you who join us every week, or if you don't join us on Sundays at 8 a.m., you may listen to us anytime after the broadcast, or you also can wait for the rebroadcast on Thursdays at 6 p.m. But leave your comments, whether you're live or whether you come back later to listen. Leave your comments in the post your comments, and then I'll come back and answer any questions, or just thank you for that, because I love to have an active audience. I really do. I'm a teacher. I like kids to participate, and my audience are my kids. So forgive me that indulgence, but a teacher at heart, right? So thank you for being on today. I hope that you left a little bit more educated than, and I, just for transparency's sake, I have a dog that is clawing at me. Goodness, stop. No, come on. She's been very patient to howl, but now she's not patient anymore. Thanks for being on today. I hope that you left a little bit more educated in some of the good things that are happening in public education, some of the concerns happening, and some of the politics that's impacting public education. But mostly, I hope that you left with the understanding of how important it is, and that all of us must be part of helping kids become more than hourly wage high school graduates. We need career-minded taxpayers who will help us keep our economy strong in the future. And if we don't help these kids today, they're not going to help us later when we need them the most. So join me in my pub ed advocacy to become a pub ed advocate for us. And we'll see you again next week. Stay COVID safe, everyone, and have a very, very warm and wonderful Thanksgiving. Of course, remaining socially apart if you can, and then making sure that you stay COVID safe. Thank you, everyone.